Meeting on Monday, September 12th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I am going to make note that we met in an executive session to discuss real estate and legal issues. And I will now move to the first piece of our agenda, which is public participation. I'm not sure if there are folks here to speak about an issue that was on our agenda last meeting, the 26 Wentworth parking lot. If there's anybody to speak to that, we have taken it from the agenda. The township is no longer pursuing the negotiation to purchase that plot of land. But if there is anyone here who would like to speak to that, I'd let you know that now is your time because it's not on the agenda. And if there's no one to speak to it, I will offer an opportunity for the Commissioner of the 7th Ward to address it if he'd like to.
Sure, I would, but if there's anybody on this board that would like to respond first.
Anyone else want to speak to that particular item? I'll just say that I was very hopeful that this would be a way to put some investment into the Garrett Hill neighborhood. We had a public meeting at the lot a week ago, I guess. Was it just a week ago? 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks ago. Community members came out very vocally opposed to the township purchasing that lot to create a parking lot. We listened to the community and we have decided not to pursue the deal. So sorry to say that we will not be investing in that parking lot, but glad to hear the input from the community at any time. So thank you. Commissioner Farhi?
Do you mind if I
Please.
jump in quickly? I do just want to also recognize staff and Bill White in particular, who did a phenomenal job on this. I'm aware that the community does not have an appetite to move forward on this project. The board is not going to be moving forward on this project. But spotting a need, finding a resolution to that need, particularly when it involves something as complicated as property purchases, is not easy. Bill's job is not to jump in and do the whole thing. It's to bring options to the board. And in this case, I think he did a really phenomenal job. I wanted to call him out for doing such a great job and say thank you. We're not moving forward on this. That in no way means that he did a poor job on this. He brought us all the options that we could ask for. So thanks for that.
I'm gonna piggyback on that because I would just like to echo some of the things that we heard from the community is that there was some sort of dealing in the dark, and I would like to commend our township manager Bill White for being as transparent, as early as possible on this, and doing what we should do, which is take it to the community and listen to what you said. So, Bill, thank you for being open about it and responsive as you were. So, kudos to the staff for the attempt. And now I will conclude my comments and leave it to you, Sean.
Thanks. And thank you for allowing this a little unorthodox, but I appreciate it. And if there are neighbors here or neighbors at home that are watching, again, I have a couple of things to say. First, I do want to thank many of the neighbors that came out, both for and against. I think active communication is a very, very important part of any community process, and that's what it was. Throughout the meetings that we had, there were two issues that came up. Well, there were a bunch of issues, but I'll talk about the actual issues pertaining to the property. Number one is stormwater. Stormwater is going to get fixed at that property, or would be there would be some kind of improvement on it, whether it's a township or it's a private developer. But a lot of these neighbors, and a couple in particular, were saying that there's been stormwater for years. And I do want to address that because this pertains to our staff, again, to what Commissioner Maroney and Commissioner Larkin had said. I think that they did a phenomenal job as well throughout the process. And let's just talk about this for a minute. And I only will speak for about 3-4 minutes. So, Stormwater. A couple months ago, we passed a $15 million bond. There are more than 10 projects. Not one went to Garrett Hill or Ward 7. I was the only commissioner that voted against the stormwater ordinance or the bond. So these people that were there that were complaining about stormwater, and there's maybe people in the audience here that knew about stormwater. I think that it would have been nice to have said something about it within the 5 years that I've been on the board. But that being said, our engineer knows, our manager knows about it, and I think that hopefully that's something that we can look at it. When it comes to traffic, we heard about issues like speeding in narrow streets, and that is something that hopefully we can look into as well. But personally, I do believe that traffic actually would have been reduced through the neighborhoods if it was just turning in and turning out, and the cars would have stayed closer to Conestoga Road and not have to try to parallel park in the neighborhoods. And we could have engineered curb cuts, left in, left out. There were a lot of things that could have made this project, what I believe, much more applicable. The other thing that we should talk about is that house. The house, they're going to maximize that house. So those people that are at home or part of the former Garrett Hill Coalition that didn't like the house at, was it 131, 133 Garrett Avenue, that said it was too tall, they don't have any restrictions here, or they do have restrictions, but just like any other house, they will put 2 twins on that property. They will maximize that. That house may tower over the other houses, and it may be, quote, out of the scope or not what that neighborhood, not consistent with the neighborhood. So just kind of an FYI for those when that big house does go up, it may not look uniform to all the other smaller houses. Finally, the cost. And I don't want it to be a Garrett Hill Wayne thing. I've said that in the past, but Wayne gets a lot. Wayne has, and I think that if the township and the commissioners want to help this area and spend money on it, I think that is a good thing. And that's what I heard from Commissioner Maroney and some of these commissioners, that they were open to that. They did have an appetite to at least investigate that. So thank you. I do appreciate that. I think that people in Garrett Hill need to look at their property values and safety. So we look at what makes certain neighborhoods, I don't want to say great, but more sought after. I lived in Manayunk for many years. It was a lot of fun walking. I lived in Roxborough. I'd walk down those, I think I counted 128 steps down to Main Street, and that was great. Walk to Wayne has really increased a lot of the properties. It makes it nice. Porch Fest and things like that. Having parking lots and places for cars or people to park, or even after hours, I think is great. Other issues, 2 other issues. If we get rid of the parking lot, they say parking's not a problem. It's not a problem yet, but it could be very well in the near future. Garrett Hill Pizza is grandfathered for 40 seats. 40 seats. And he and the owner originally was looking at having the back as parking, which would have been fine. But he's not. He's going to sell the property. So you have a restaurant out in front, or a bunch of them, that one restaurant has 40 seats, but 5 parking spots. Where do you think they're going to park? So you may say, well, at the Rosemont Business Campus, and they may, if it's after hours, and they may be allowed to. And hopefully the owner of the complex will continue to allow us to do so. But if that happens, that will stress those side streets in that neighborhood. And walk up and down Wentworth, and you will see cones and lawn chairs of people protecting their spots. So that's just an FYI. Finally, before I want to thank a couple people. Why is it this lot? Well, this was the only one for sale. This was the only one actively for sale. If you look at some of the other places that may be for sale, and I'll say quote unquote, there may be demolition involved. There may be EPA involved. And there still is going to be stormwater involved. So this was the most affordable, what I believe the most affordable and the best case scenario. Finally, I do want to thank a couple people, and that is our staff. Bill, I think you did a tremendous job. I really appreciate that, and I don't ever really want to, acknowledge. Wow. So yeah, to Jack Larkin's point, and this is very hard coming off my tongue. I'll agree with that. So. Chris, thank you for coming and having staff traffic there. We had 2 staff traffic police there that were answering any questions, as well as Kevin, codes, as well as our engineering, Steve, and Peggy, and Billy Gallagher, as well as another person, Tim McGee, who was in our public works department. And finally, Moira, thank you for being open and transparent as well throughout the process. So that's what I want to say. There is one thing that, I do want to say, and I think it's important. The neighbors spoke, I get it. And the neighbors that live on the street that have reached out to me, that I get it. The issue that I have are a certain group of neighbors that just, I feel, want to start trouble for really the sake of starting trouble. When you hand out cards like these with no address, email address of your own, or no identifying address of your own, and you kind of pin everything back on the commissioners or staff, I find that very disingenuous. I think that it's just wrong. And finally, the individuals that said that there were nefarious things going on, and I heard them, I've heard some of them firsthand, and some of them through other people. They really should be ashamed of themselves. And the process is difficult, but to start accusing other people of doing things that are not true is, it really, really soured me. So I do want to apologize to certain members of the staff that felt that they were wrongly, and I know that they're wrongly accused of that. So, but with all that being said, we do have stormwater issues, so we should look into that, and traffic issues, take those neighbors' concerns and look into that, and keep our eyes and our ears open. And if another possibility opens up, take a look at it. But I don't necessarily think that this is going to go away. The business district, whether it's Garrett Hill, whether it's Glenbrook, whether it's Glenbrook or wherever, they need, if the township can help them and do things that can help them, I think that that's what we're elected to do. And we need to work in conjunction with the community. So, thank you.
Okay, now, thank you for indulging us to speak to an issue. There were a lot of high emotions around this, so I think we just wanted to speak to it before we closed it down. So I will continue to call the public up for participation to speak to this issue or anything else on your mind. 5 minutes, thank you.
There we go. Hi, good evening. Nice to see you all. I'm Kathy Agnew, 325 Pembroke Avenue, St. David's. I'm also head of Porch Fest, and that's I'm here to recognize 2 people. One is Ken Paree. Officer Paree, the Radnor Township Police Department, he's a man of his word, and he really came through for us. And so I just want to explain, if you've never been to Porch Fest, it's a beautiful day. The streets are closed. Everybody gets to walk around. They hear all kinds of music. And the kids they're sitting in the street. They're chalking. They're riding their bikes. It's kind of, sort of like how it used to be. And they're just so happy. And so we, every year, go before staff traffic. We, present our plan, what we're supposed to have, and we request our barricades. our is approved, our plan is approved, and it's all really about public safety. So the day before Porch Fest, we're notified. Well, actually, we're not notified. I take that back. I noticed we were shorted more than half of our barricades. And the importance of the barricades is public safety. Been doing this for 5 years. Every single barricade is necessary to make sure that everyone on the music streets is safe, most especially the kids. And so when I noticed they weren't there, I called a few people in the township, specifically Public Works, and it doesn't look like we were going to get them. And I have to say that it was not really very helpful. And so I explained my position. It still looked like we weren't going to get them. And then Ken Paree, Officer Paree, stepped in and guaranteed he personally would make sure that we did. So this is a man who understood how important this was to the safety of our community, in Ward 3 most especially, but to everybody at Porch Fest. And so he personally made sure that we got them. He also personally made sure that they were returned to so they could be of use on Sunday. And I know he personally did it because I'm sitting on my porch with a bunch of friends and I hear this banging. I'm like, oh my God, someone's taken the barricades. And I run out and there's Officer Paree collecting them to return. And so I just have to say that he is a man of his word. He put public safety first, and he came through for us. Now, I was on the board for a little bit, so I also can read through the lines and see clearly that Peggy Hagan, if not for Peggy and Ken, this never would have happened. So thank you, Peggy. I know it was you. I know it was her. I do. And so thank you, Peggy, for looking out for the safety of everybody in the township and everybody that was there. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for Porch Fest.
Sure. Oh, my pleasure.
Is there any other public comment? Not seeing any, I'm going to move to the consent agenda. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Any item? Not seeing any. I will ask if there are any commissioners who would like to remove an item from the consent agenda. Okay.
Well,
Oh.
Can I remove items D and F?
Sorry, D and
F.
F, as in Frank? Okay. Any other commissioners want to pull something from consent for discussion? Okay, so item D, Resolution 2022-111, authorizing an electronics recycling and paper shredding event to be hosted by Radnor Township at a cost of $13,800. Mr. White?
Yeah, I'll tee this up. This is the annual program that the township offers its residents to have a free paper shredding and electronics recycling event. It's, as the resolution points out, it's scheduled, if approved by the board, it would be scheduled for October 29th. It's been a popular event in the past, and so we worked on scheduling it again and brought it in front of the board for your consideration.
Can I hear a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Abel, do you want to ask questions or speak to this?
Yep, sure. Now, Bill, what's the breakdown? So if you had to break down cost of e-recycling and cost of paper shredding?
In the resolution, it refers to,
Yeah, it's almost entirely the
flat rate.
e-recycling.
for e-recycling is
Yeah.
$12,000, and $1,800 is going to the proper shredding and secure disposal of paper.
All right, I appreciate that. And Bill, I appreciate that you guys in the township looks at every opportunity for recycling, whether it's shredding, pill recycling that's laying around the house that goes to the police department. It's just on the e-recycling, I'm all for trying to solve a problem. And one of the problems that we heard were neighbors hold their electronic recycling all year and they didn't have anywhere to recycle it. I believe we've resolved that by partnering with Retriever, where they come, residents can schedule, the township comes and collects, and the township actually, the retriever comes and collects, and the township benefits by receiving a small percentage of the value of the recycled material. So for me, in this case, it's we're actually duplicating efforts, and actually it's counterproductive because I think we should really be pushing, and I know it's on the website, but we should be pushing all residents to use retriever so they don't have to hold electronic recycling for one event. They have, for one day a year, they have access to this service every day of the year. So in my opinion, we don't need this event, and we're actually paying $12,000 unnecessarily, where I'd like to see that $12,000 go to another service or project where we don't have a solution at the moment.
Any other comments from commissioners?
Yeah, can I just ask a question? So we're going to do this in lieu of collecting some trash. And I don't know, Bill or Bob, how much do we pay per ton for trash? Just curious. Do you have an idea? Do you have an idea? $200, $220?
Well, the per ton rate is between $70 and $80 per ton.
Okay, so
For trash.
For
the
trash.
Recycling, which paper theoretically would be recycled, that varies every month.
does it more than $80 a ton?
No,
or
it's
less?
it's usually less than that.
Okay. So, and how many tons do we collect?
I don't have
You
that
don't have that.
memorized. No.
Okay.
I know that it's, in terms of dollars, we're spending $600,000 a year-ish
Okay.
for disposal fees.
Well, I'm just curious what when you talk the breakdown of how much we're paying, this is like an extra event. Is this beneficial in the sense of, so we're taking money out of one pocket for another, and
Well,
I'm just wondering.
It's a little different in that our trash collection does not include the electronics items. So if you're a resident that needs to dispose of one of those, you have the retriever option, and that is, as Commissioner Abel pointed out, available to the resident all the time, year-round. This is an event that is at no additional charge to the residents. I can say that last year, we had 36,000 pounds of electronics turned in that day.
18, okay.
So it is, again,
18
I mean,
tons.
and that's why, we went so far as to bring this back in front of the commissioners. It is typically that popular of an event, so.
So couldn't we have retriever there, and they would just take it, and we'd pay them, and then they would just, if they could give us something back, no?
Well, we offered that, or we had that discussion with Retriever a year ago during the same conversation, and it's not an event that Retriever is interested in hosting. Their business model's a little different than what this day encompasses.
Okay.
So Bill, just to follow up, so do you know the formula? So take that amount that was recycled last year, e-recycled last year, what would the township gain from that if those neighbors had used Retriever?
Yeah, that's math that I'm not going to do on the fly.
Okay.
The amount that we're receiving back from Retriever is not overly significant. I'm not trying to diminish the service. I mean, really, it's about, if you have electronics and you don't want to wait till the end of October to get rid of it, and it's March, it's a great option. And we had, in the last 12 months, 2,300 pounds go through Retriever as well. So it's a service that is being utilized.
Can I I'll do quick math. So at 36 tons, that's say $78 a ton, and it's probably going to be more because these are harder items to dispose. There is a cost saving. So if it costs the township $12,000, we're pulling, I'm ballparking, 2,800, let's say 3,000 out of our, so what we're saving from the public works side, we're costing So the event is not 12, it's a little bit less, maybe about 9, 8, 9?
Yeah, that just
Yeah.
gets tricky because they're items that we don't collect through our stream.
So I can appreciate that we are spending this amount of time talking about $12,000 or $9,000 or whatever it is. I have been to this event probably most of the years that it's been hosted by the township, long before I was a commissioner. I think there's more to this event. It's showing our community that we are caring for them, we're caring for the environment, and we're offering a really valuable service. When you come to the event, you're seeing our staff, you're seeing other community members, and it has a very festive atmosphere. You're in and out very quickly because they're really efficient, but personally, I do save up my electronics because I'm fortunate to have a basement and it doesn't overload me, and I wait for this day. So I think there's more to it than the cash, and if we're talking about investing in our community and providing services to our community, there are a lot of things that we do that cost us a lot more than this, and I think that there's really good feeling behind this event. I think we're doing a right thing for the environment, and I am 100% in favor of keeping this event for as many years as we can. So it will have my vote. Are there any other comments from commissioners? Not seeing any. Would anybody from the public like to comment? Okay, I will call the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. Thank you. And I will move on to item F, which is Resolution 2022-108, authorizing the payment to Valley Forge Security Center for the installation of an alarm and camera system in the amount of $8,005.50, the township's 50% share of the system's total cost in partnership with Willows Park Preserve, to be funded from the general fund allocated to the requirements of the lease agreement.
I'll tee this one up as
Thank
well.
you.
If Chief Flanagan and Mr. Tate can answer any of the specific questions with regard to the security as well as the finances. But if you'll recall last month when the Willows Park Preserve was here presenting, there was a brief discussion about security at the mansion. Just generally, and then also more specifically a couple incidents over the past couple of years there. And it was determined in working with our police department and the Willows Park Preserve that additional security measures were necessary. We met with the Willows Park Preserve to identify what potential solutions might exist out there, worked up the cost estimate for those solutions, and then agreed with the Willows Park Preserve to present to the board tonight a 50-50 cost share. Almost all of this is a one-time cost. It's for the actual equipment, it's for the cameras, it's for the infrastructure of the security system. There's a very, very minor amount of ongoing data. But by and large, almost all of the security measures are going to be transferred over the internet, which already exists there, so there's no additional cost. But the goal here is to introduce security measures to an asset that is owned by the township, hence our share of this agreement, and then operated by the Willows Park Preserve, and they've agreed to take on their share for that. So that's what's in front of the board tonight.
Thank you. Can I hear a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Okay. Commissioner comment? Jake?
Yeah, thanks. Just trying to get my questions ready. So, Bill, I think you said, I think you answered my concerns. And just to be clear, Radnor Police will have no oversight over the camera system, correct? Like, we're not monitoring. The police will not be monitoring the camera system.
I mean, as with any of the security camera systems that we have set up, there is no live monitoring taking place. The cameras are recording video on a DVR, so it is helpful in a post-incident situation to retrieve that. And that part the police will have access to as it relates to trying to solve whatever incident took place.
Okay, and then just the other piece of this is the funding. So there's the, roughly 4,000 upfront cost. And then you said there was no additional costs, but then you said minimal. So which one is
Yeah.
it?
So I'm looking at the Valley Forge Security Center quote that was included in the packet. There's a $300 alarm monitoring that'll be done by Valley Forge that we pay on all of these security systems to make sure that they're up and running properly. It's not a monitoring where they're looking at screens and monitoring. From that standpoint, it's making sure that the system's up and running properly. All of the other costs that are a part of this are capital-related and one-time costs. Well, installation costs, I shouldn't say one-time. Eventually, the cameras will have to be upgraded, but that's years down the road.
So the $300, is that monthly? Is that one time?
That is a monthly charge, yeah. I'm sorry, no. 12 months. It's $25 a month. The $300 is the annual charge. Sorry.
Okay, and who's responsible for that monthly or annual charge?
I forget if we agreed to pay for that. I think we agreed to pay for that because it is the security. We are paying Valley Forge for security at various locations throughout the township, including the trail parking at Brookside, Emlyn Tunnel Comfort Station, this building. So we agreed to pick up that cost.
Okay.
Other commissioners? Comments? Is there anything from the public? Sure.
Hi, Steve Bass. I was just curious. If it's a monitoring system, I have ADT in my house, and they don't have cameras in the house, but it triggers an alarm. So when this is set up, isn't there something that is triggered if someone breaks in that they could monitor and then the police would come out? That's what I don't understand. You're saying that it's being viewed on a camera, and you can go to the camera and look at it, and if some damage is caused, they can go look at the camera, but it should be instantaneous where something gets sent out, and then the police could come. I was just curious. Thank you.
On the general build of the system, it will also alert for general activations such as a door being broken, a window. That is included in this quote.
So it's more than just the camera capturing it. It's an actual on-time activation if there's an issue at the site. And that's what the $25 a month is covering.
Correct. It's
Okay.
monitoring all of those things at one time.
Okay.
And then, as Mr. White mentioned, the internet, where we would use other things, is already present and paid for by the Willows Preserve.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions. Anyone else from the public like to speak to this issue? I will call the vote. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. This is passed unanimously. Thank you. So I will now call the vote for the consent agenda, for items A, B, C, E, and that's it. A, B, C, and E. May I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. The consent agenda is approved. So moving on to our business agenda, the first item is appointments to various boards and commissions. So I have a list of wonderful residents who have stepped up to serve, and I will read the committee names and, the committees, the names, and the terms, and then we will vote on all of them to move them. So for the audit committee, 3 members for each for a 5-year term ending December 31st, 2027. That's Ed Kane, Bill Ripley, and Ryan Robbins. For the design review board, for a 5-year term ending December 31st, 2027 is Sayun Park. The Environmental Advisory Council is filling 1 position for a 4-year term It's an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2024. Daniel Burnham. And the Historical and Architectural Review Board, Konstantin Nikolaev, will fill a term, a 5-year term, term ending 12/31/2025. Is there any commissioner comment on any members?
You forgot one on the Environmental Advisory Council.
Just today, we received notice that he is not able to serve due to a conflict with his work. Yeah, thank you. We did have another one. So we will continue to have one opening on the Environmental Advisory Council that we were not able to fill today. Any other questions or comments on any of the members?
I just want to say, we had the opportunity to interview. I know not people were in and out on different interviews and stuff, but I think it's an excellent group of residents who are coming forward to serve. So thank you to everyone who is stepping up because we need more of our community involved.
Absolutely. Is there any public comment on these appointments? I will call the vote. All in favor say aye. Passes unanimously, of course, and we are, again, very grateful to all of those who serve on our boards and commissions.
Madam President, can I just, before we get into the agenda, can I ask the manager to give a little clarity on 2 issues?
Are they issues on the agenda?
One's on the agenda, one was on the agenda last time that was tabled till this meeting and was not included, so.
So can you bring it up in old business?
I can.
I think that's the appropriate time for that. Sorry, so item B was stricken from the agenda. Item C is Ordinance 2022-13. It's the adoption of the removal of the handicap space in front of 248/250 North Aberdeen Avenue. May I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there, Chief, do you need to speak to this? I know we talked last time.
We're good, ma'am.
Okay, excellent. Is there any commissioner comment on the handicap spot? Any public comment? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor say aye. That passes unanimously. Item D is Ordinance 2022-09, adoption amending Chapter 263 Trees, Section 263-6, Emergency Tree Removal, revising Section 263-6C to apply to hazard trees on private property of public concern and revising the process for the removal of hazardous trees. May I please hear a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thanks. I know that Public Works Director Rick Foster has spoken to us on this issue before. Is there anything else that we need to hear on this item? Is there any commissioner comment? Is there any public comment?
Is this the stormwater?
No, this is the hazardous trees, removing Public Works from neighbor disputes. Okay, I'm not seeing any public comment either. I will call a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. And item E is Ordinance 2022-15, which is an adoption amendments to the 2005 Stormwater Management Ordinance. And I think we are hearing from Mr. Norsini tonight.
Good evening, everybody. So we touched on this at the last meeting. So we're here tonight to talk about the proposed stormwater management ordinance and why we're doing it and what it entails. Why are we doing this? So DEP is directed under Act 167 to develop a model ordinance. This gets pushed through the county to the municipalities. What it means to us We are an existing MS4 permittee. We will have to reapply at the end of this year in October, not the end, but in October. And we have to have the model ordinance passed in some form to be able to do so. Just so everybody's aware, the current 2005 ordinance is a model ordinance that is very similar to this, except some of the changes. So these model ordinances go out, and we currently have one in place, and this would be one to replace it. The following items are still required. This does not change. That's peak rate control, stream bank erosion requirements, water quality, and infiltration. I know this is a dry topic. I only have about 50 slides. We're going to go deep. No, actually, we're not. It is a very dry topic, and if you're not used to it, it can be daunting. One of the great things about this new model ordinance is they push green infrastructure, and they push low-impact development. So low-impact development on a small project, there's not a lot there, but the green infrastructure is. And it requires people to use it where they can, and it gives them more options that we'll see in another slide. So let's go through the changes in the ordinance. So right now, in the current ordinance, it's broken down into 3 categories for what you have to do for the new impervious that you create. So in the current ordinance, between 0 and 499 square feet, you still need to get a permit, but there's no BMP required. Current ordinance, 500 to 1,499 square feet, it's the recharge. It's currently where you dig a pit, you fill it with stone, or you put some type of vessel in there, and that's how you manage it. Over 1,500 square feet, you do stormwater management. Those were those 4 items on that slide I previously showed. Under the model ordinance, nothing changes at 0 to 499 square feet, but it does get more stringent. Between 500 and 999 square feet, you do that same recharge. Now, you do have more options. Infiltration trench, rain garden, biofiltration area. But at 1,000 square feet, you are required to do stormwater management. That was these 4 items, right? That's what stormwater management is. That's an engineered plan. It's a process that you hire an engineer for, whereas the other ones are not. You can do that yourself. So I think this is a good thing. I mean, we have stormwater issues all across the township. So we have a 2005 ordinance. It's now 2022. So in my opinion, I believe I agree with this in getting more stringent. Yes, Commissioner.
Do you want me to ask now?
Yes, please.
Well, I was just going to say, so I've heard from a few residents, there's concern that by lowering this threshold, it certainly makes the projects more expensive because they have to, get, more engineers involved and whatnot. So do we have a sense of, I think that, we definitely do want to control more stormwater. Do we have a sense that, this is absolutely necessary, that this is going to do that this is kind of the straw that's going to break the camel's back?
No, so to back up a step, again, so this is in the model ordinance. I do agree with the more stringent requirement, and I can go through a few reasons why. So we are receiving more frequent, heavier storms, and this is throughout the township. And once projects go in reality, there's no going back to make things more stringent. Currently in this township, the vast majority of homes, were built prior to the 2005 Stormwater Management Ordinance that we adopted. There are some that have vestiges of a minor stormwater management system, but it's pretty far and few between. In the 60s and 70s, you saw basins built, and that handles the road water from a development, but not the homes. And we don't use that type of stormwater management anymore. So these are the incremental changes we talk about, where over time, thousands of feet becomes acres, and single acres becomes dozens of acres, and so on and so forth. So 1,000 square feet, or 999 square feet, is roughly 30 by 33. So if you were going to put a 30 by 30 addition on, this would fall somewhere in there, depending on walkways and things like that. No, is it as lenient as the 1,500? But I think when people do their project and they hire their design professional, so no matter what they're doing, they're going to hire an architect for their addition. That architect, his or her job is to let them know what codes they have to follow. And stormwater management is one of them. And that's something that homeowners budget into the cost of their project. So I don't feel that it's going to break the camel's back. Will some folks not agree with it? Sure. I can tell you I get dozens of permits that come in at 498 square feet. I get dozens of permits that come in at 1,400 square feet. Everybody knows the rules, and they do their best to build to them. Other folks are like, no, I need this room. This is what I want to do. So I can't tell you that this may or may not turn some people away. I think it's all part of the cost of whatever their project is, and I recommend that we move forward with that.
Thank you.
So some changes in the proposed ordinance. The current ordinance provides no credit for reduction in impervious, and I put this on since the last time. I did suggest a cap of 999 square feet, but the basic premise of this is right now on our grading permit form, it actually shows how much impervious are you removing, but it means absolutely nothing because we don't recognize it in the ordinance. So there's no incentive for someone to say, okay, other than from a zoning standpoint where I need to get my total lot impervious down to a certain amount, there's no incentive from a stormwater management standpoint for anybody to remove anything because you get no credit for it. It doesn't reduce your requirements. So the way the ordinance is written, if you were to remove it, and let's say it's a driveway, you would remove the driveway and any and all stone underneath it. You put loose topsoil back in, seed and mulch. And now that's considered pervious area on your lot. The 999 is arbitrary. It doesn't have to be there. I thought we might want to cap it, but I think in reality, on most projects that folks are going to build, you're not going to see many that have the ability to remove that much impervious from their lot for a remodel or for an addition. If you knock down your home and you rebuild, this really doesn't apply because you're not creating new impervious. You're actually going to usually get bigger. So the proposed ordinance provides for a one-for-one credit if you do, as I noted with the topsoil. There's another item, we talked about the green infrastructure and the low impact development, and I know it's hard to see, but these, right now, if you, that mid-tier of stormwater, that infiltration, this is pretty much what you have. In the new ordinance, we reference the PADEP BMP manual. So basically, it's a manual. It's several hundred pages. It is on our website from the DEP that provides all these various options and rules and regulations for installing them. So we have a biofiltration area. We have infiltration trenches, the famous ring barrel. So it does allow residents and or their designer or themselves more options than other than just digging a pit in the backyard, filling it with stone, and running it into it. There are some additional changes. Decks will no longer be considered impervious. That would be a wooden or man-made material with space between the deck boards. That does not include a masonry veranda or anything like that. This is specifically decks. But I think that's, I think our residents will like that. Uncompacted gravel areas with no vehicular traffic. So there's a good amount of folks that have a pathway on their property that's made out of gravel, or maybe they have, a barbecue and somewhat of a crushed stone patio. When we review those permits, that's all impervious. So what we're saying now is, if it's not been compacted by vehicular traffic and you just have some gravel down and that's how you get to your back barbecue area, It's not impervious. And also that counts for solar collectors and the ground beneath them. So there's a little incentive for folks to go solar. They're not going to get dinged on stormwater if they go solar. This has been a very hot topic over the years, waivers. So the ordinance says you must infiltrate on several levels. If it cannot, then the design professional has to show that and prove that to us, which they do. You've seen that where it says we don't meet the requirements for infiltration. A financial hardship is not considered valid for a waiver. So that gets back to project planning. You can't say, oops, I didn't count for it, I can't do it. If infiltration cannot be achieved, there are alternative methods. And you may recall, I believe it was in Commissioner Abel's word, an engineer came in here with what he referenced from the PADEP BMP manual, which was the managed release concept. It's out there, it's known, you're allowed to use it. And this ordinance would say, yes, let's use that. So what we're suggesting in here is, this takes the onus off the board and puts it on staff to work with that resident or that designer to say, okay, you have very specific requirements now that you can't infiltrate. You must do X, Y, Z. As opposed to, in the past, folks would come up and offer from 0 to quite a bit of management to the board, but there was nothing concrete. And this also puts the onus on me and our consulting engineer, but actually that's a good thing. So it's engineers talking to engineers, not engineers trying to educate everybody to a specific situation. That's just my thought. This is just at the end. So our comp plan is going to be hopefully done in 2023. My colleagues, that's his project. My suggestion is that instead of when the comp plan's done, we pick one ordinance and say, this is done. Now everybody must meet and follow that ordinance. I suggest we do somewhat of an integrated process, you know, with zoning, with stormwater, with saldo. We have conflicts in our saldo, not with just saldo and stormwater, but within itself. So request to do some rewrites at that point. And now we're at the question time.
Thank you very much. This was really good. It helped clarify some things that you brought up last time. So I'm going to open it to the other commissioners for questions. Does anybody have a question? Go ahead, Anna Marie.
So when it comes to decking and that not being impervious anymore, is there a requirement for how high the decking needs to be off the ground?
Now, so height of decking, handrail, all that falls under your building permit. This just says if you have a deck with spaces between the deck board, it's not impervious. And I've had this discussion with residents for many a year, and they say, well, geez Louise, the water goes between the deck boards and it goes onto the ground beneath it. I said, I know, but that's not what our ordinance accepts. So now that would accept that. And I do want to add, there are a lot of smaller changes and different changes. That was listed in the one item from last week where basically the county goes through it. These are the highlights. These are the ones that are going to affect our residents the most. And that's why I limited my presentation to that.
Is there, to that point, is there anything required under a deck? Like, does it have to be gravel? Does it have to be?
Most folks do put stone under there just so vegetation doesn't grow.
Right.
But we really just wanted to get into the dirt,
Yeah.
into the grass.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just have a quick question, and it's not necessarily related to this. Well, it is, but it isn't. So what's going to be the process for people to receive the credit back for removal of impervious? Like, what do you see? How do you see that
Sure.
happening?
So they're going to submit a plan like they do now, and they're going to, highlight an area that says to be removed. We're going to make sure that that removal includes, if let's say it's driveway for this instance. So it's not just the asphalt, it's the stone. And then they need to scarify that. And that's part of what our inspector is going to have to verify when they're out there to make sure that was done.
Is there anything that specifically needs to go in its place? Does it
Yeah,
have to be
so whatever
just
they
dirt and
remove,
grass, or?
It's topsoil, seed, and mulch.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. How much, so what would that look like as a, coming off of somebody's stormwater?
So let's say you have a long driveway. We'll say it's 300 feet long and it's 12 feet wide. Conceivably, and I've seen this done, I mean, you could trim 2 feet off the edge of your driveway. A contractor would trim 2 feet off the edge of your driveway, remove 600 square feet of impervious, and that becomes grass, it becomes lawn. Or you have a patio that you no longer wish to use, or it will not be part of the new plan. You can remove that, all stone has to be removed, and that becomes lawn again.
Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
Steve, just a couple of questions. You explained the piecemeal side before. Do you mind just explaining that again? Like if you have a project, you have to wait 2 years.
Oh, okay, yes, great point, Commissioner. So we're proposing a 3-year look back, right? And we have the ability because we have records for that. And honestly, I don't think it behooves anyone to go back further than that. So the idea is to stop someone from doing a project that is 900 square feet, and then the following year 900 square feet, and then the following year 900 square feet, just to usurp the ordinance. So we currently do a 1-year look back, but this would be a 3-year look back to ensure that's not taking place. And believe me, I'm not saying it's some nefarious action that's being done. In some cases, it is purposeful. In other cases, it's just this is the way they were moving forward. But that is to fight that, because I think we all need to remember, we talk about the little incremental measures, right? So these are all small things. We say, here's a house that was built in 1980. There is no stormwater management. There is no control. Well, when they build that veranda or that addition, at least we're going to control the new construction. And that's what the old ordinance was about to a point, and that's what this one is too. Because collectively, it does make a difference in a township of this size with the number of parcels we have.
2 more questions. Is there anything in as I said at the last meeting, I didn't read it, and I'm deferring everything to you.
I'm shocked, Commissioner.
That I didn't read it, or no?
I can't envision that any of you would read that from back to front. I'm sorry.
Building in floodplains. Is there anything on there about that? Because people want a special exception. I think that may or may not have.
There is. It hasn't really changed in this ordinance.
Okay.
So that's still, you're still going to go to the zoning hearing board. I mean, you're going to go through there. But we do have requirements where we're asking for more riparian buffers, and if it's and items like that. But from a stormwater standpoint, that's really not an issue.
Okay. And then one last question. Let's say the township decides we're taking your right of way and putting a sidewalk in, and you are already maxed out. We're going to put a project in, but does that max you out, or
It doesn't count in the right of way.
Okay, so if it's in the right of way,
So
it doesn't count.
the project that's, well, actually that's a replacement, but the project on Lancaster Avenue, we're going to be receiving those bids in 5 or 6 days. So if there was no sidewalk there, everything on that project's in the right of way, we wouldn't count that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and one more thing, if this would have been done with the bond, I would have really liked that. Not you.
I'm sorry?
Nothing. No, if this, I would have liked to have seen this with the bond in conjunction with the
Oh,
bond.
okay.
I know that there's a little bit of delay, as you said, but thank you. Thank you for all the hard work on this. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Go ahead, Commissioner
Steve, I just
Jones.
wanted to thank you for this breakdown, because without it, honestly, the ordinance was really, kind of incomprehensible. So thank you for explaining it.
Yeah, there's no doubt it's dry stuff.
I just have one quick question, and I don't know if this is even a thing, but would you say the more stormwater that we can control, certainly we know it's not going into our creeks and our streams and the sediment and all that stuff, which is the main goal of this. But would you also say that it's not entering our sewer system, which I know has always been a concern of ours when we talk about the cost of processing and things like that, because we do have really old sewer systems and we know that stormwater is getting into them.
So there's two types of, there's inflow for sanitary sewer. There's two types of ways that water get into the system. Inflow, so if you have a riser pipe on your yard and your yard gets flooded, it literally flows right into that pipe. Infiltration is where there's a pipe underground that is deteriorated or has cracks or has bad joints that groundwater can get into. I really think there's a separation between the two. So you could have a pipe that runs along the creek that gets groundwater all the time. The goal of this ordinance is to put as much runoff as we can back into the ground. That's what charges our streams and our rivers, right? So that's how they start. I wouldn't be concerned pro or con with a sanitary sewer in that respect. Yes, sir.
Would you be willing to share the presentation with us so that we can totally not pass it off as our own work and share it with residents?
So yes, I will make sure. So Mrs. Hagan always posts whatever we provide the night of, and I'm sure it's okay with the manager. I'll just email it to you folks also.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you very much for the hard work on stormwater ordinance. I should also just kind of disclose this is something that Steve and I had been talking about previously, and through a mix-up which was entirely my fault, it got left off the agenda, to which I responded by asking Steve to quickly get it back on, and he did in lightning fashion. So I'm very grateful to you, not just for the good work, but also for the very fast work and the last-minute work, which again was my error, not yours.
Are there any other comments from commissioners? Is there public comment? I'm not seeing any. I'm gonna, I don't think I asked for motion. I have a motion
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
And I'll call the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. None opposed. Thank you very much, Steve. Really good work. Moving on to item F, which is consideration and motion to authorize John Rice to attend the zoning hearing board meeting and oppose appeal number 3142 regarding a proposed restaurant at 312 West Lancaster Avenue. Mr. Rice, can you tell us about this?
Sure. This is an application for the chili site. We had received a request, Bill and I, probably 2-3 months ago, about a zoning map change on this site, because part of the site, the rear is zoned R5, the front is commercial, and we informed the attorney for, I guess, the buyer or the owner that the board wasn't agreeable to that. We discussed that. So I was a little surprised to see this come in because it doesn't involve multiple variances, a drive-through. It's probably not a great location for this particular facility and what they're proposing. So anyway, so tonight is just to authorize, I mean, Kevin might want to add to this, but tonight is to authorize us to attend and to oppose the application.
Yeah, thanks, John. In the board's packet, you'll see a listing of the application and the variances that the applicant is requesting. I'll just go over them very briefly. To allow a restaurant use in the R5 district, as John mentioned earlier, that the site is split zoned. About half the site is commercial C2, the other half is residential, and they would be proposing to extend the restaurant uses into that residential district. Setback requirements, side and rear yard setbacks, outdoor dining, and buffer planting strips were some of the relief that they were requesting. This was initially scheduled for the September zoning hearing board meeting, which is later this week. However, the applicant has requested a continuance to be heard at the October meeting.
Thank you very much. Before we open to commissioners, can I get a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner comment? Mr. Larkin?
I've heard a lot of complaints from residents about this particular application. I'm not aware of what possible hardship you could have in order to entitle you to zoning relief. I think it's going to create a mess on Lancaster Avenue from the drive-through, which, you know, is an argument that I make fun of in the past. I'm perfectly aware, like, this is going to be so popular, we have to keep it out of the township because nobody wants it. Sounds kind of silly, but the reality is it's going to create a traffic mess on Lancaster Avenue. So I'd suggest this is not a good location for it. We can all drive down to the Chick-fil-A across from the King of Prussia Mall.
Other commissioners?
Yeah, and, I mean, Commissioner Larkin, I'm sure we've all driven and stopped at that Chick-fil-A, and we know what type of traffic it results in and backs up. And I don't think either you or I want to be at the other end of those phone calls when neighbors are paralyzed on Thursday, Friday, Saturday night at 6 p.m. And can't move anywhere. So I agree with you. I don't think this is the appropriate location. I will support the solicitor attending the next Planning Commission meeting to oppose. But I don't think, my understanding is this isn't going to prohibit, you know, this establishment or any establishment from coming to the township. And, you know, it's also my understanding that, you know, these same applicants have a second location in mind, and there are plans before the township. So for those neighbors who are very much in favor of having a Chick-fil-A or some other establishment, food establishment in the township, you know, I don't think that opposing this applicant or this particular request is going to prohibit us from seeing a potential Chick-fil-A in the future.
I'm confused. So is it that we don't want this business by name there, or is there something else? You know, would a McDonald's be okay? And I don't want to start throwing out names, but how is a Chili's allowed to operate? I guess that's my question.
It's the drive-through that's the issue.
The issue on this one is that the applicant is asking to do drive-in only, and it would have like double lanes of
Okay,
cars
so-
coming in. So
so-
they would tear down the building
Okay.
and rebuild to, I think, no indoor seating or very limited, and then a couple of, like,
So it's going to be
several
takeout-
lanes of
So it's going to
traffic.
be takeout only. So the issue
Yes.
is that it's drive-through. It's not that there's
It's
a
that
restaurant.
it's all drive-through. It's not drive, park,
Okay,
dine.
and currently,
So-
drive-through is not allowed, drive-through restaurants are not allowed in Radnor, is that correct?
Nope.
We don't have any. The last drive-through I know was like the Taco Bell.
No, it's not that they are, I think the opposition that I'm hearing is not that it is a drive-through, it's the design of this building is asking for like 4 lane, or 2 on each side lanes of drive-through. So the amount of traffic that can just circulate and circulate and circulate is what some residents are taking issue with. So it's not that it is a drive-in, it's that it's drive-in only, so it's just cars.
So it's drive-in only with very limited seating.
No seating at all,
There's
other
no-
than some
there's
outdoor
no
seating.
seating at all.
I think they're looking to
Got
do
it.
some
Okay,
outdoor
all right.
tables or something, but
Okay.
it's just cars.
So Sean, I mean, just talking for me personally, I don't think the site would be able to contain the traffic, which then would spill onto Lancaster and would prevent serious traffic issues for that portion of the
Sure,
township.
okay, as long as it's not like, we don't want a Chick-fil-A here. I mean, because I live in Bryn Mawr, and going to the Starbucks in Bryn Mawr, I mean, it backs up the line.
No, as I said, I think there's other locations that are more appropriate that, you know, that, and one in particular is before the township now.
Okay. All right. I just want to,
And-
I just want to make sure that it's not, okay.
Yeah, and I want to,
okay. And if they scrape the site, then it becomes like a new project, then that whole residential kicks in, correct? Because the back end is residential?
That is correct. They're proposing to scrape the site, so any nonconformities that exist with the current Chili's building would be, you know, extinguished, and then they're subject to the setbacks and the use requirements as they exist in the code now, not as they
Okay.
previously existed.
All right, thank you, that clarifies a lot, thank you.
and I do just want to clarify that this is not about a particular company or business coming into our community or drive-ins coming into our community. I think it's literally the plans that were presented by this business just don't fit that location, is what I'm hearing. Any other comments from commissioners? Any public comment? I don't think I moved. Can I hear a motion?
So moved.
And a second. Thank you. I'll take the vote. All in favor, say aye. Thank you. John, make us proud. I don't know what to say. So moving on to item G, which is authorization to receive sealed bids for stormwater system projects at the following locations: Wild Evan Road, South Ethan Avenue, Morris Road and Clover Lane, and Morris Road and South Devon Avenue. May I hear a motion?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay.
So Commissioners,
thank
you have
you.
Ben Wagner in front of you for the second time. You may recall the manager, we were able to hire Ben with the understanding that his salary gets offset through design. I think this is his 7th or 8th project he's designed. Ben is no one-trick pony. He is also doing other things for us. We have him working on other projects. He's doing a great job, and I'm really proud to let him present to you tonight.
Excellent.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Ben, for being here.
Oh, yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Don't know where the flash drive is coming up. There it is. Thanks, Ian. All right. So basically, we have 3 projects here today that we would like to put to bid in one package. They're all stormwater projects, and I'll just give a brief overview of each. Our first one is at Morris Road and Clover Lane. Basically, there is an old, let me zoom in a little bit. Yes. Yeah. Basically, there's an old busted up pipe running through these backyards here between Morris and Clover Road. Clover Lane, that is causing residents a whole bunch of issues, basically sinkholes in their backyard. And the idea is we're going to abandon that pipe and then relocate it onto the street and connect into an existing inlet on South Devon Avenue. Here's the overview here. And then yep, and then the pipe comes in and connects to the existing system on South Devon. And the road that's going to need to be torn up for this project will be repaved into better condition than it is currently. That's shown here, mill and overlay.
Sorry, Ben, is the pipe under Morris or Clover?
The pipe runs down Morris.
That nicely new paved road? Oh,
Yeah, that I wasn't aware of that, but we do think it's necessary with what's happening in the backyards of the residents. But yeah, the new pipe will go down Morris.
Yep. Hey, Ben, can you just focus on the section of Morse for a moment?
Yeah.
Are we talking the entire stretch, or are we talking a small section?
So it's starting here at this existing inlet, coming across and then down.
Where's the island in relation to that spot?
So Commissioner, this is way down the other end. It's nowhere near, this is like, I don't know, Ben, what's the profile say? What's it, maybe 150 feet in? It's nowhere near that island.
So
Oh, yeah,
You're gonna
it's-
do, you're gonna do the front part of Morris then, close to South Devon.
Yes. Yeah.
And then how are we tearing up that road? Is it just gonna be in the street, or are we doing anything to the sidewalk and curbs?
Just the street.
Okay. And when you say it's gonna be put back in better condition than it is now, I mean, we're talking pristine, because it's,
Yeah,
It's
we're
brand
gonna
new.
make sure it's not torn up. You know, it's gonna be milled and overlaid. You know, brand new.
all right, you guys are causing me a lot of problems here.
Was there any knowledge of this before the Morris project? Thank you, Ben. I'm looking at Steve because this was before your time that Morris just had a
Commissioner.
major investment.
So Commissioner, we knew there were some issues, but we really didn't have an answer to what was causing them. And as we got deeper into this, that's when we really, it came down to two choices. Either we run back through the backyards, and right now that pipe goes under garages and homes, so we didn't want to do that. The thought was maybe we can rehabilitate the pipe in place. We can't do that. So this was the final option that will take the pipe out of the backyards, and all that occurred, you know, mainly during and after Morris Road.
And can you describe what's happening in the backyards? Can you tell us, like, you know, what is the problem we're trying to solve? What is it doing to the backyards of our residents?
From my understanding, we had a surveyor go out and he spotted sinkholes, like multiple throughout the yards. I'm guessing the pipe's probably 100 years old and just destroyed, so water's leaking out of there and, yeah, causing them major issues.
So there's actual geysers in a big rain. Like, the joints are bad and the pipe's clogged, and it just, Commissioner Abel knows, we've talked to a few residents that get the geysers.
So what's the time frame? How long will the street be shut down, and how are we notifying neighbors?
I don't think we have a schedule together yet, but I mean, we did a similar project on Radnor Street, and I don't think that took longer than a week. Steve, I don't know if you had any.
Sure, Ben. So Commissioner, you know, the project's going to have to get bid. Once we get, you know, assuming it gets awarded, part of that award is the contractor has to give us their schedule. And we would do like we always do. So for everybody who borders the project, they're going to get a letter. And we will provide to you, we would provide to Molly Gallagher, our PIO, information to put out. Other than maybe when they're crossing the street, we don't anticipate a closure. We anticipate lane restrictions through that area. And we work with, and again, Molly's great, and Sergeant Gluck, our emergency management coordinator. They're going to make sure that all the fire departments and police, everybody knows about this, and we'll make sure everybody does also.
We'll be able to get buses through?
That's going to be a requirement, that they're not going to be able to shut it down, or they have to do it between certain hours.
Okay.
And when Ben goes, this is applicable for the rest of the projects you're going to see that Ben's going through.
Okay, all right, I appreciate it. All right, thanks, Ben.
Sorry to interrupt here. We should probably let you get finished before we start bombarding you with questions. Is there a chance to talk to Pico and Aqua and everybody else if we have to dig this road up, or any of these? And then, and this is a pipe dream, because I sent Bill as well as Superintendent Flanagan a picture of a traffic light on the five-way intersection on Conestoga. Is there any way to bury some of these wires as well? And I'm not saying with this, I'm just saying in general, is there, if we got to dig stuff up, can we look at burying, I don't know if you can bury cable wires, electric wires, if gas lines need to get replaced, if water lines need to get replaced. Is there any kind of benefit or synergy associated with that?
I would say that's.
And yeah, or
sorry.
Steve.
I was
either one.
probably gonna ask Steve. I'd say that's probably out of my expertise.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, because we're digging up a road twice, it's expensive,
Oh, yeah.
convenient, and yeah.
I'll say that we do work with the utility companies. We put in the one call. We know where they're at, and yeah, we're gonna work with them to make sure it's put back properly.
So Commissioner, Pico and Aqua have already been through there for gas main and water main. We worked very closely with Aqua to get done Morris so we could get started, and also with the gas. As far as burying lines, that's solely a Pico question, right? You know, with the utility poles. I will tell you there's a whole host of issues that come with that. So it's not just burying the line, it's now running the line up to the home. It's more than just burying a line. So one of the biggest issues is heat that's created when you bury these lines. So I have yet to see Pico take overhead wires in any large area and go to underground.
So, Jake, I think I'm not going to try and quote you. You said the gist of what you said, as I understood it, was basically that this could get you in some hot water with residents. We earlier this afternoon, this evening, killed a improvement in Garrett Hill specifically because the residents didn't want to do a project that people on the board were not excited about. Is this going to be something where the people don't want us to tear up their streets, or?
No, I was kidding.
Okay.
Just because they've gone through Aqua, they've gone through Pico, they went through the Morse Road. They love their street. So the minor inconvenience, but they know that this is an issue that needs to be addressed, and they're tired of sinkholes, geysers, and water spewing out during major storms. So long term, we're doing the right thing. They'll have to deal with and they understand. And hopefully the company who wins the bid will be as good as the companies who have worked there over the last 12 to 18 months, and after a week they'll be fine.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
I appreciate you asking that question.
I have one quick question, Ben. So what do you actually do? You have an old storm pipe that's coming and presumably makes a curve going through their backyards and is somewhat obstructed and starts geysering. How do you get that old system to the new pipe that you're going to bury in the road? Like, do you just have to literally physically connect it and abandon the old one completely? Like,
Yeah.
there's no chance that water's going to infiltrate that. You'll have your new system and you'll still have geysers.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So, yeah, the old system that runs through the backyards is going to be abandoned. Basically, we're going to fill it with flowable fill, plug it up so water can no longer go in there. And then, yeah, our new system avoids the backyards completely and runs in the road. Yep.
Do you have, can you estimate a time when that pipe sort of broke? Like, I'm just sitting here thinking, the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we just put into that road, and how could we have not known? Did it break since that road went in? I can't imagine that the neighbors, when they were going through all of the renovations over there, weren't mentioning the geysers in their backyard. So I'm wondering, is it a recent collapse of that system?
I can take that, Commissioner. So we did speak to, I met Commissioner Abel. We did speak to one resident, and Public Works had looked at it, but we had no idea at that time how far-reaching the problem was. And when we would go out, another person said, "Hey, by the way, come look over here." Again, my first thought, what I hoped to do was rehabilitate the line in place, but and Public Works has been great. They've been there several times. And on one of the times, they're like, "Steve, I can't get my camera through here. This is it." And we're trying to look at where the pipe goes, and it looks like it goes under one house, maybe 2 under a garage. So all through that process, that's when this came about. We didn't really know the fix or what the fix would be until we really started to study it. And at that point, Morris was either almost complete or done.
Okay, I will go over the next 2. Next one is on South Devon Ave between Devonwood and Devonwood. Brief overview of this one is this storm pipe that runs under the grass median here is, again, old and totally busted up, and it's impacting the sidewalk and driveway aprons here. So that here we're just replacing that in kind, replacing the sidewalk and driveway aprons that are going to be impacted. And up here at the corner of South Devon and Devonwood, 2 new ADA ramps are going to be installed. Yeah, that's the extent of that one. And then the last one is at the intersection of Wildhaven Road and South Ithan Road. Back one. There's a problem corner here where during serious rainstorms it ponds and floods a little bit. So we are going to add a new inlet there, a new cross pipe from the existing inlet here, and then we are going to outlet across the road where we'll grade down to the creek, and then once again, the area that gets torn up will be replaced and improved on. And then those are the 3 that we would like to bid into one package, just because we think that makes it more attractive to bidders. But yeah, that's the gist of it, if there are any more questions.
Can I just ask a question on the Wildhaven project? So thank you very much. That is a huge problem that does really flood there. So thank you for coming up with a creative solution to that issue. Do we know, like, so this won't require the road to be closed totally, like across, it looks like you're going right across the bottom of Wildhaven. Is that going to be completely closed? And didn't they just have that open up for, wasn't Pico or Aqua? Somebody was just there, I know.
That was Aqua.
Yeah. Okay, so will the road have to be closed while this work is being done, or what? That's because it just that's a pretty busy intersection, or pretty busy entrance into Beaupre there.
I mean, I imagine it'll be pretty quick, just because it's only 50 feet of pipe. Do you, Steve?
Yeah, so I think the entrance to Wildhaven is large enough that that's not an issue. And going across South Ithan, that may be a 9 to 3. There may be a closure because it's just such a narrow road. But we can see if we can try to get the, if we can spec that the road won't be able to be closed. It's tough. And Commissioner, to your point, this project grew. We originally thought it was just going to be, replace this inlet and get the water to drain. That pipe actually goes through that corner property all the way out. And Ben's showing it now. So that's reconfigured to remove that. We don't have any easement for that. The pipes, the inlet's full, the pipe's full. So this is a workaround, which I think is a good workaround. So there's going to be some traffic inconvenience.
Where does that pipe drain, the current one?
It goes to the creek.
It goes under the road, like further down?
No, that creek goes through, where we put the culvert on Marl Bridge. It's open there for a little bit, and that's where we think it goes. Not really sure.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Well, thank you very much. That seems like a good fix. We'll just let the neighbors know, and they are definitely going to repave it really well, right?
Oh, yeah.
We just got
We're
all the
not gonna-
roads in Beaupre we paved.
Yeah, we're not going to leave them with,
Okay. All right, great.
bad
Thank
dug
you,
up
Ben.
road.
Good
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, thank you.
And Ben, can you just go back to the picture on South Devon and Devonwood?
Yes. This one?
Yep, so the two new ADA sidewalks will be will be bordering Devonwood. Will there be a crosswalk between the two?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
No problem.
Are there any other questions for Ben from commissioners? Is there public comment on these projects? I'm going to call the vote to authorize to go out to bid. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks a lot.
Moving on to item H, resolution. Yes, I did make a motion in a second. I know, I'm not very consistent tonight, and for that I apologize. But item H, resolution 2022-104, authorizing the payment of change order number 2 to North Abenizio Contractors Incorporated for modifications to the underground detention basin, sanitary sewer connections, storm sewer connections, and associated items necessitated by elevated groundwater levels and unforeseen pipe conditions for the South Wayne Municipal Parking Lot Flood Reduction Project, which is contract B22002, in the amount of approximately $180,000 to be funded from the Stormwater Fund. I'm going to ask for a motion
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
And then Mr. Norsini.
Thank you, Commissioner. So one of the things, we've been working with this contractor to get this change order, and unfortunately, we hadn't fully negotiated and gone line by line through everything when the agenda was due. So it's listed at $180,000. It's $119,000. So, this is a good time to address this. So everyone's probably wondering why there's this huge hole in the parking lot in South Wayne, and there hasn't been much activity at that specific location. There's been other pipe being laid elsewhere. So what occurred, we had a geotechnical company come out. They did borings. They provided us with a report. We designed the big seepage bed to be above groundwater levels. Lo and behold, our contractor started to excavate, and there was groundwater. So we did more test holes. And I can tell you that the testing we did was at the right time of year. It was a wet January and February. And no one has been able to give me an explanation as to why the groundwater level is up 1.5 to 2 feet in certain areas, but it is. And that portion specifically of the project stopped during this time while we had to redesign a lot of things. So number one, we had to raise the elevation of the system while not affecting the effectiveness of it to address the storms. It also required us to use not to get too deep, a full PVC liner around it so no water could get in the system and reduce its capacity. We have to reroute the sanitary sewer. A lot of the storm sewer that was designed now has to have different inverts, right? That's the height of the pipe because we have raised this system. So there's cost with that. There's cost associated with the contractor. They're no longer going to be able to just dig this huge hole and drop these things in. They're going to have to work in small areas. A very significant portion of this will be the pumping, the dewatering, if you will, that's going to have to occur. Also, what's also included in this change order, we were fully aware that this part of Wayne is loaded with pipes that nobody knows where they come from or that they even exist. I will tell you it is twice as bad as my previous pessimistic thought of what was there. And we have encountered untold pipes, which have caused us to do exploratory work, changing routing of pipes, and these are all in here up to about a week and a half ago. I'm going to be perfectly upfront. There will be future change orders, there's no doubt. When we were digging out the aprons for the Radnor Fire Company, that concrete work we're doing there, we had unsuitable soil. We had to go down 4 feet to get to something decent. I will tell you there's water that comes in every trench that we do. So the good thing is we have a path going forward, and I'm requesting that the board approve this. If the board does approve it, we'll notify the contractor tomorrow. He anticipates that this work, all associated with that, would start next week. That's the pit, that's like the relocation of the sanitary sewer and working on the pit. So I'm open for any questions that you may have.
So if the work were to start next week, do we have a new estimated timeline as to when the project will be finished?
So the contractor, weather permitting, of course this summer it rained like once, and now it's rained the last 2 weeks. The contractor is anticipating if we have decent weather, we can get the work done. What we wouldn't get done is so as part of this project, there's a resurfacing a portion of South Wayne, School Lane, and West Wayne Avenue, and most likely that won't occur due to temperatures. If things go well and weather stays with us, we anticipate the pipe being in and at least the base portion of the parking lot being installed. Again, that's very much a fingers crossed. The only thing we've hit in that parking lot is water, which just surprised the bejeezers out of me, because with what we've hit everywhere else, I'm really surprised, and I'm hoping we don't. I mean, I think I found the corner of a building somewhere. We found metal plates. We found all sorts of weird things and a myriad of pipes. So if all goes well, Commissioner, hopefully we can have everything buttoned up. The project wouldn't be complete. We would have to do the paving come spring, but we're hoping we can get all the rest of this work in if the weather stays with us.
And Steve, is the amount that you are, this change order, is this within the contingency?
That's a great question, Commissioner. So the contingency for the project's $831,000. So we're at about 14% of contingency. And for the project itself, it's maybe 2.8% of the total project cost. So the reason the contingency was 20% was because I anticipated a lot of stuff, to use a technical term.
Can I follow up on that, or Commissioner Moore? Okay. So that 120,000, that's out of the 10 million, or is that out of the 3 million for this project? The entire bond, or just a specific project within that bond?
So when we went to request award from this board, it was for the construction cost. That's the project. That's the contract with Ab Initio. That's for inspections, including geotechnical. That's for contingency. So it's we went to you, the project was bid at 4.1 million, but
Okay.
we were in front of you for like 6 or somewhere. I don't know the exact number off memory.
Okay, so, and then do you see more issues, or is it really hard to ballpark?
I anticipate us encountering other issues as we move forward. We still have considerable amount of pipe to lay.
Okay.
I anticipate there will be issues when we do that.
Okay, do you think that you'll stay within that threshold, or you think you'll go over?
Boy, oh boy, I sure hope I can stay within the $800,
Okay.
800,000,
Great,
Commissioner.
and then one more question. Why is it 119 ballpark, what you're saying, but 180 listed on the...
When the contractor first gave it to us, we had to get this on the agenda, and we hadn't had a chance to review it. So there were certain items, as we go down line by line, we're going to question them we're going to come up with different methodology. We're going to question their method. So some of it is a negotiation. Some of it is quantities. And I was an estimator. It can get confusing with what we're doing because we've really changed a lot of the support structure for these big arches that are going to go in. And so we were able to remove some of that. So that's why we went from 180 to 119.
Okay.
There's nothing nefarious or anything.
No,
It's-
no,
It's
no.
part of the normal, in construction, this is very much part of the normal process.
Okay, and then last question, is there going to be a material issue or a labor issue or any other kind of pipeline issue, for lack of a better term, with this?
So the arches for the parking lot, they've been made for like 3 months. They've been waiting to go in. What we will, there is an issue with stone right now because of what's used for paving and what's used for other projects. I anticipate possible fuel surcharges or additional fuel surcharges for deliveries of, the thousands of tons of stone that's going to come in here. Part of this change order is covering the fact that the soil's so wet, they can't actually use it to where they thought they were going to use it. Fuel surcharges there. So far from the pipeline, we've been okay. Not great, but okay.
There any other comments from commissioners? Is there any public comment?
Dan Burnham, 414 North Bellevue Avenue, Wayne. Mr. Norsini, I guess I'm not surprised that we have a groundwater problem. Whenever I dig a hole in my backyard, there's often water. What is the ultimate destination of this water that's going into that detention basin in the parking lot?
So this project has 2 facets. So there's a series of pipe that's being installed as we speak, excuse me, that will direct water into an underutilized subsurface system at the middle school and under their playing field.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of now below that, like Runnymede and the other portion of South Wayne, will go into the new system we're going to create, that we're going to construct, and that will go into the existing culvert.
Okay, the middle school playing field. I presume the water level in that field over a typical year has been studied, and that field will be able to bear this extra runoff, correct?
So from our design engineers, they've informed us there's a lot of unused volume in that field. And that's because these pipes, this goes back to when part of that project was truncated because they couldn't get through this maze of pipes that we're encountering.
Right.
So as our engineer said, it's money in the bank that's not, he goes, you have unutilized capacity in this system, which is, fantastic, right? It costs a lot and we have it. So we're going to utilize that.
Jean Galley, 143 Barclay in Bryn Mawr, this is Bryn Mawr. Anyway, question, is a lot of this based on the fact that the creek used to run out under the old middle school? Is that what all this is? And it was never really addressed and was never hooked up to take the water?
So I think there's 2 points to that. If you look at the historic maps of Midland, there's ponds and creeks all along there that have since been built over. So at this point, we're trying to deal with the problem that's been created by, 100 years of building of impervious surface. So this rainwater that we're working with is coming down towards that area, right?
Correct.
So that system I mentioned, the pipes that are going in now really take a lot of water that comes down off of 30 in West Wayne,
Right.
gets it into the middle school system. The others, and there's a considerable amount that comes down Runnymede, South Wayne, that's what's going to go into the big system under the parking lot.
All right. And then one quick question. The myriad, which caused the fact that the middle school field was never hooked up because of all the whatever was down there, are you trying to map it so you know what's there, or are you getting rid of it as you go?
What we find, we map. And there's still, there's so much, and nothing is where it's supposed to be, I can tell you that. We've also found that. So we are we are still getting, and again, we're not done, but the goal is to get these pipes connected, right? We still have some tedious work coming up, going under some fiber optic lines and things like that, but that's the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I will call the vote. I'm going to note that the motion is to approve 119, $119,000, not 180. So based on what Steve Norsini presented today. So I will ask all in favor, say aye. Opposed? None. So that passes. Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 2022-109, a resolution of Radnor Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, authorizing Radnor Township to enter into a purchase agreement with Radio Maintenance Incorporated, a CoStar's certified vendor for the replacement of the Public Works radio communication system and equipment. The township anticipates entering into a 5-year capital lease agreement at an interest rate of 3.25% APY, which results in an annual payment of approximately $29,528.10. Can I get a motion, please? And a second.
Second.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, Commissioners. Sergeant Chris Gluck with the Police Department, as well as Stephen G. Cristoforo, who is our resident communications expert and also part of the emergency management team. Yes, we're talking about the Public Works communication system. It does fall in the umbrella of emergency management because we do respond together. We don't just work with fire, EMS, and police. Public Works is a big part of our response when we do have an issue. Also, their regular maintenance of the township and their assistance during major events is very important, and the communication aspect is also very important. We have found out that over the years, the Public Works communications radio system has been failing. It has been repaired again and again and again to the point that the copper wires have been spliced so many times that it's now going into other phone lines, and you can hear somewhat persons talking over the radio system. There is a signal issue, and for years now, they haven't been able to get much distance between each other to communicate and send out messages to their trucks. So what we've come up with over the years, but now has gotten more advanced, is the ability to replace this system with, get rid of the copper wires and replace it with a wireless system using the internet. It is a little expensive, yes, I agree, but at the same time, it will enhance not only Public Works, but also our team effort that we have between police, fire, EMS, and the Public Works Division. So Steve has a very, very short explanation of what currently is in place and then what we'll be replacing. But I just want to make sure everybody understands through this enhancement, it's not just speaking truck to truck or person to person, it's overall communication for Public Works, also emergency response. So with the enhancement, we'll not just be able to talk from the Public Works garage to a trash truck, we'll also be able to talk to a job site. They'll be able to do portable radios where we can discuss safety issues where you're on a road where you're closing it and you have to flag vehicles through. So you have a portable radio that can communicate from one person to the next who's on a bend so no one gets hurt or hit by a car. So the enhancement is extremely important. It's a safety issue, and we would like to move forward with it with your approval, obviously. And Steve, if you want to just explain a couple things. Sure.
Madam President, if I could, just while Steve's teeing up, what ultimately got this from administration to tonight's agenda, in addition to the overview that Sergeant Gluck laid out, was, for me, the fact that at any moment these radios could go down permanently because of the multiple repairs over time, and the absolute critical nature of the communications that Sergeant Gluck just reviewed, not just between the Public Works trucks from a close proximity, but those trucks over the entire township, as well as the various police vehicles that might be out, which impacts our department's ability to respond in snowstorms, in major rainstorms, in major incidents, from major incidents all the way down to the simple ones like Sergeant Gluck described as just managing traffic around a site if our guys are out collecting leaves, which they'll be doing in a few months. So Ultimately, that's what that elevated this quickly from, you know, a known problem with lots and lots of repairs to something where we're kind of at mission critical level right now, which is why it's here tonight. Thanks for that 1 minute, Steve.
Okay, sir. Good evening, board. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What we have right now for Public Works is called a simplex system. Basically, this is the tower that sits right next to the building, okay? This is the shelter that's under the building. So right now, basically, there's a single transmitter with an antenna on low band, which is a 30 to 50 megahertz range, which sits about halfway up the tower. It's a single site, so basically it's simplex communications with nothing in between. So if the trucks get out of range, or if a truck is too far away from this antenna, or two trucks are apart at a distance, they're not going to hear each other. Also, right now, the old technology of connecting the Public Works garage to the tower site so that Leah and the Public Works garage can speak on the transmitter was we use what we call RTNA circuits that Verizon has had out for many, many years. They're doing away with them. They're actually copper wires, and those of us in the telecommunications field know that Verizon is doing away with copper circuits, and they're going to everything fiber. So these lines are going to be decommissioned rather soon. We've got extensions on them a couple times so far, but we keep them alive because that's what's keeping our Public Works radio alive right now. So right now we have a copper wires, RTNA circuits that go from Public Works to the tower, but also at the same time we have our emergency management channel, which actually sits at the top of the tower, and we have copper wires going from there to the Villanova Conference Center for a satellite receiver and to Bryn Mawr Hospital for a satellite receiver. Now, that's what we have right now. We intend to eliminate all these copper wires and the cost associated with them, which is around $4,000 a year that we pay to Verizon to keep these circuits alive. What we're going to do is we're going to do a combination system where the commissioners last year had the foresight of purchasing an additional pair of 450 megahertz channels that we were going to use for the Public Works channel. After looking at the entire system and looking at the way the antennas are configured on the tower and the way the system is laid out now, we thought it would be better to, instead of having all these copper wires, to leave the antennas at the top of the tower here, which sits right next door, attach new transmitters to this emergency management channel / Public Works channel, make it a dual capable system, attach a second transmitter here at our current site at Bryn Mawr Hospital, which is only a receiver right now. We would install transmitter equipment here, and then connect to both by internet. It's going to give us a system that we can eliminate the Villanova Conference Center site. It's going to give us a system where we can have portable radio capability for our Public Works folks. And Ricky Foster and Tibor have been instrumental in working with us to try to finalize exactly what their needs are. We're also going to replace many of the radios that are in our patrol vehicles right now, the mobile radios, which are 2 years past end of life, and there's no parts available for them anymore. We are also going to reestablish a connection between this building and the tower shelter, because there is a cable that we've replaced probably 10 times that runs from here to there that carries data up to that shelter so we can monitor the temperature in the shelter, et cetera. Every time we get a lightning strike nearby, that wire fries underground and we end up shorting out our network. So we're going to replace that wire with a short-haul microwave, which connects this building to the tower shelter, which will also give us capability for the receptionist out front to talk on the Public Works channel. The police vehicles will be able to talk directly to Public Works. It's a huge compatibility issue, a huge interoperability plus for the township, where all of the township assets will be able to speak together on an encrypted digital channel, not accessible to the press, okay, and not accessible to anyone who wants to listen. So these will be digitally encrypted channels on a motor-to-over system. It'll be connected via virtual private network through the internet. And basically, since you bought the pair last year, we're going to use the existing pair that we have right now for our current emergency management channel, put the second pair that was bought over here at Bryn Mawr Hospital, and we'll have a dual transmitter system, which will cover a very, very good percentage of the township, both portable and mobile. So it's a win-win. We're doing a whole bunch of projects that we've been trying to do for the past 2 years. We're combining all of them to give us a more robust, reliable system.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much. Very clear presentation. What's that?
The cost covers the radio systems.
Go ahead.
Sorry. The cost of this is going to cover radios for every public works vehicle. There's not many. There's few police vehicles that need to have that radio upgraded in the car that would replace those. We've already replaced some as the cars get rotated through, but this would replace them all at once so it can access that channel. It also gives us equipment in the field, portable radios for department heads as well as the guys at Public Works for safety issues. So it is a robust system. It is crucial, to be honest with you, when we have a snowstorm, to be able to talk to the Public Works guys to say, you know, we have an ambulance call that goes to Morris Road and we need to go over there, but we need a plow to help them get to it. We have to be able to communicate with those guys at a moment's notice. This system being digital as opposed to analog will actually increase the distance and make it more clear to hear it. So,
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues. One is, can you tell me how old our current system is? I know you've been saying you've been patching it together, but I'd like to know when we
I
bought it.
started here in 1997, and that Public Works radio was working then, so, okay.
Thank you. That was my question. Any other commissioners have questions? Go ahead, Maggie.
So my experience with the internet is when power goes out, you lose everything.
Okay.
So tell me about backup
Yes,
systems.
okay. Battery backup will be available at Bryn Mawr Hospital with a UPS so that the unit doesn't go down for any period of time while the generator's firing up. And the tower shelter up there where the equipment on this end is going to be is already connected to the uninterruptible power source in this building. So it will not go down.
Thanks. I have just a couple questions. Where are most of these copper wires located?
The copper wires,
Ground or up?
no, they're above ground, majority of
Where?
them.
Like on telephone?
On telephone poles,
Okay.
yes. They're called RTNA circuits. They actually exist. They commingle with the old Verizon telephone wires.
Okay, so can they be removed or not?
No, that's Verizon's equipment. So our goal is to just do away with them completely and let Verizon do with them what they want. And they're decommissioning them now. They're actually doing away with copper and going to fiber. So
So there's just going to be extra wires up.
it's Verizon's equipment. It's not ours.
Okay, but a lot of those wires block our.
They are, but like I say, they are decommissioning them as they go along.
Okay. And then any towers, any new towers? Are they going to be any new towers erected or
No.
they're just?
No,
okay.
it's existing equipment. The antennas for the transmitter on this end are already at the top of the antenna here, and the antennas of Bryn Mawr Hospital are already there. What we're doing is we're replacing the transmitters that actually connect to those antennas. So there'll be no additional tower work needed.
Okay, is it going to send a stronger wave out?
The transmit power actually for this transmitter right now is 75 watts for the low band, because low band requires a lot of punch. The transmitters for the UHF, the digital, because digital travels so much better, are only 40 watts. So it's actually less power transmitted.
Okay, so less brain cancer.
Other commissioners?
I just have a quick question. So you mentioned it's
Yes.
going to cover most of the township.
Yes.
So there's certainly areas, and I'll say like over on my end of the township, where I know sometimes there's connectivity issues and things like that. Will you cover that area? So I'm over
We've
like
done
our
enough
draws
coverage
in over
studies
that
to
way.
know that we're very confident it's going to cover the majority of the township, yes.
Okay, all right.
But we can always in the future, if we need to, somewhere down the road, just add a receiver and add it to the internet. It's a system that's totally expandable as we go along if we need to.
Okay, great, thank you.
So I'm going to piggyback on that and ask the decision to not use, it looks like there were 3, including one at Villanova. So
Yes.
it's not needed, we don't have access to that anymore, so
Right.
why would that not be part of the new?
Okay, because
coverage area?
the 2 transmitters, right now we're a single transmitter site right here. We're going to 2 transmitters and 2 receivers right here. So this basically is only a receiver. We won't need this site anymore because it's going to be covered by this one.
Any other questions from commissioners? And do we have any public comment or questions from the public? Not seeing any. I'm going to call the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that concludes our agenda for tonight. I'm going to move on to reports of board liaisons. Is there any commissioner who would like to report on a committee action?
So just real quick, I'll talk about Parks and Rec. Give kudos out to Tammy Cohen for her, as well as Reverend Howard and everyone that was associated with the unity in the community. I believe that was the 28th, I think, of August. Very successful. I got there toward the tail end, so thank you for everyone that came, all the sponsors, as well as people giving backpacks and other school supplies. I'll just segue in. We had a very, very successful back to school when it comes to Radnor School District as well as Villanova. They went seamlessly, so thank you to the police and everybody for that. And that will segue into what happened yesterday. The Bryn Mawr Fire Company had a wonderful 9/11 ceremony. I was a part of it. Commissioner Maroney, you were there as well. Commissioner Borowski, so thank you for attending. These community events are extremely, extremely important. I would touch on the Porch Fest, but we heard from Kathy Agnew, so thank you for that. Upcoming, whoops, one more thing. And we also had a Parks and Rec meeting where we talked about Fenimore Woods. So it looks like we're slowly making progress on that. I would really actually like to thank Claire Gerton personally. I think she did an excellent job handling a lot of the concerns, as well as Steve Norsini as well for being there and addressing them as well. Upcoming events, Sunday, October 2nd, we have the Great Pumpkin Fall Harvest. It's a lot longer than that, but that is a fun event at the Willows. If you are going to go and you are a Radnor resident and you want a pumpkin for yourself or for your child, I know in the years in the past you have had to register, and that registration is only open to Radnor residents. So while anyone can come and enjoy it, and we want you to be there and take advantage of the Willows, if you do want one of those pumpkins, you do need to register, I believe, as done in the past, as well as be a Radnor resident. On October 18th, we are having the Wayne Fall Festival, and that is in downtown heart of Wayne. And, pardon? That's September. September, so that's next week. So buy your running shoes and, yeah. And that's the Wayne Festival. And then October 30th, that's the Radnor Run, right? Okay, there we go. So that's it, and thanks.
Any other committee reports? I will move to new business. Any new business? How about old business?
Yep, just one item in old business. So last meeting, we had an item on the consent agenda for, I believe it was 4 new benches on the Radnor Trail. The board tabled it looking for potential donations, but I was contacted by a neighbor who was on the Radnor Trail and identified 4 new benches, and then we don't have an item on tonight's agenda, so just asking for an explanation, and is there no longer a need for the new benches?
Yes, so I can touch on that. One of our public works crews were at another park in the township after that August 15th meeting, and it was a park that had 15 park benches, and it's a relatively small park in the township, so they recommended that instead of buying new benches, we relocate 4 of those to the Radnor Trail. They were the exact same benches, just a few years older. So based on that recommendation from those guys, which I really appreciate, We went ahead and executed that, so those benches are indeed up on the trail now. I do apologize for not following up with the board on that or adding it to tonight's agenda. We made the decision quickly and moved on to the next thing on the list. So in the future, we will do a better job of circling back with the full board on that. But I do want to give the Public Works guys credit for understanding the larger issue and coming up with a solution that was pretty creative. We also want to point out that part of the discussion at the August meeting was the opportunity for folks to donate or to have a name associated with a bench in memory of someone or a purpose or for some reason. That's always an option. That's still an option. That would be a phone call to Tammy Cohen in the Parks and Rec Department, and she will help walk you through that process. So if there's still folks that are interested in participating in that way, it's always an option, and we would encourage them to call. But the benches themselves are up on the trail.
No, Bill, appreciate it, and I actually, I agree with you, and I support the solution, cost savings, and we solve a problem that neighbors were asking and requesting, and those same neighbors who were requesting were the same ones out on the trail, walking the trail as a community group, and we're taking advantage of the new benches, so appreciate it.
Any other old business? I will open it up to final public participation. Keep doing that. I'm going to start speaking a lot slower. So may I have a motion to adjourn and a second? All in
Second.
favor say aye. Good night, everyone.